Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 5th of August, comes to you from London. And we see the dollar index falling away here over the last 48 hours. So we are seeing the dollar just retreating, putting it back into short-term bearish territory. But of course, we've really well and truly over the last couple of weeks cleared into bullish territory on the medium-term chart. So dollar is still bearish in the medium and long term, but short term we have pulled back into short-term bearish territory. That's allowed the euro to climb back above 111. So we are seeing the euro back into short-term bullish territory, but that medium and long-term chart is very bearish for the euro against the dollar. Looking at the Japanese yen, we see the dollar here has fallen away quite significantly as well, and we're bearish on all three time frames, showing that the yen is the strongest currency of the majors. Looking at sterling, we're sitting at 121.11 at the moment. That 120 level last week was breached. We've got a new level now at about 120.90. So that's the area now where we need to just make sure that we don't breach lower. We do have downside targets to 120.19 and 119.50, so we might see the sterling decrease further. And against the euro, we're seeing sterling actually testing these new lows again this morning. So we're sitting at 108.75 on the euro, and we're very close to activating the downside target to 102. We've just acted one to 107, so we are just seeing the sterling falling against the euro on this the increased prospect of a no-deal Brexit showing through. Against the Swiss franc, sterling sitting at 118.50, and against the Aussie dollar, we're seeing sterling actually just improving. Bitcoin sitting at $11,700 this morning, so it really has rocketed in the last 24 hours, taking us back into very clear bullish territory. We've got good upside targets, about $13,500. That's 15% upside from here. 13,900. Short term, we've only got the 11,775 target, which we're quite close to. So hard to read in the short term. Keep an eye on the 1-minute charts if you're trading Bitcoin. The US market fell in the end last week, and we saw the S&P 500 index close down about 0.75% on Friday. The Nasdaq was similarly lower. These markets now in short-term bearish territory, and the Dow also falling lower there as well. And the Russell 2000 index falling away as well. The futures this morning not looking great for US markets. Trade worries still hanging over the market. The S&P future down over 1%, and the Nasdaq E-mini down nearly 1.5%. So we will see the US open much lower based on these futures. The UK market is down 1.4% this morning, so quite big falls there. Midcaps down 1.3%, and in Germany we're down over 1%, and in Paris we're down 1.5%. So that's turning Paris actually into bearish territory. So we're seeing in the medium-term chart, so we're seeing quite a big sell-off and change in sentiment. The Japanese market was down 1.75%. And the Hang Seng are down a massive 2.75%, taking out the June low quite significantly now, looking to 25,000 support on Hong Kong. So really looking quite bearish there. We have got a downside target, some 17% lower activated there. In China, we saw the Shanghai Composite down 1.5%, still looking bearish on all three time frames. We've got downside targets 5%, 7%, and 21% lower. So we're seeing global stock markets, even though they've recently made new highs, really just selling off quite dramatically here. The Sensex in India down 1.2%, the Aussie market down nearly 2%, unwinding quite a lot of the gains that we've seen in recent weeks, but still maintaining bullish trends on the medium and long-term charts, but the short-term chart falling away quite sharply. Brent crude also falling away quite heavily on that sentiment, down 1.5%, and WTI and Texas Intermediate down 1.3%. So we're seeing crude oil falling away quite heavily as well. US nat gas sitting at $2.10. It looks almost inevitable now that we will break below $2 with targets below the $2 mark on nat gas. Gold, being the beneficiary of all this turmoil, is up at 14.55, looking very bullish there on the chart on all three time frames with good upside targets. So gold is the one bright spot we're seeing. Silver similarly rising and making it into long-term bullish territory. US 10-year yields are falling away quite dramatically, now sitting at 1.77%. So really having plummeted through the 2% mark last week, we really are now just well and truly away from those levels. No new clear targets. We've got a long-term target of 166, but nothing more to the downside. So we might be nearing a nadir there. German bonds pushing higher, negative yields being the feature there, and we're just seeing bond prices just continuing to rise there. Taking a look now at the stocks on Friday, looking at the Dow, we saw the worst performer was actually Cisco Systems, down 3.8%. And that's just turning them into medium-term bearish. The relative performance still holding up and not really turning, but a little bit worrying there. Boeing actually bucking the trend, up 1.6%. And McDonald's also bucking the trend and actually looking still very good on the chart, outperforming the Dow by 5% this year. The Nasdaq 100, the best performer was Kuwait Retail. They were up 1.7%. But on the downside, in fact, even Tesla actually had a reasonably good Friday, but the fact is we're still bearish below the cloud on that chart. And then we had NetApp. They were down a massive 20%. So we did see some quite big falls on the Nasdaq and expect some more today with that future down 1.5%. In the Aussie market overnight, we saw Resolute Mining. They were up 4.3%. That stock continuing to rocket, so really bucking the trend there. On the downside, we had App Unlimited down 10.6%, not looking great there. In India, again, the market quite badly hit here. We see live pricing coming in from Yahoo Finance. We've got Coal India. They were the best performer, up 2.3%, but not enough to change the picture on this chart. Underperforming the Dow by 27% this year. And if we look at the worst performer, it's Power Grid, down 5.6%. Again, this chart looking reasonable, but on the relative, it has gone nowhere. This year, and Yes Bank often featuring the downs, the fallers, a terrible looking chart still, down 5.2%, underperforming the market by 60% this year against the Dow Jones Index. Taking a look into Europe this morning now, we've got the UK market, only two stocks up, Fresnillo and IAG on the strike threat. Fresno not looking great on the chart. IAG also not looking great on the chart, but they're the only two stocks that are up. It's really a screen of red across the board. We've got Ocado Group down 4.4%, giving up a lot of their recent performance. So we are seeing some quite big moves in the market. Financials looking quite badly hit here. Prudential down, Hargreaves Land's down 4%. But generally, and Schroders down 3.6%. But generally, we're just seeing falls pretty much across the board with the whole constituent list down. Looking at the 250, we see Rank Group actually bucking the trend, up 4%, but not enough really to change the chart there. Polymetal International up 2%. That chart actually looking better, bullish above the cloud on all three time frames. And then if we look at the downside, of course, we've got some quite big ones here. Cas Minerals down 5%, Ferex Pro down nearly 5%. So we are seeing some quite big falls here. Woodford Payton Capital Trust down a further 4%. So we are just seeing falls across the board there. Looking to Europe now, Iberdrola bucking the trend in Spain. They're up 0.6%. Chart still looking bullish and holding on, having outperformed the Dow Jones this year by 10%. Again, we're seeing the live pricing coming in from Yahoo. There are a handful of stocks that are rising, but on the whole, it's bearish as we might expect. Schneider Electric down 2.8% in Paris, but the stock just holding on, just might be turning into bearish territory this morning. LMVH also just holding on, but a lot of these stocks just coming off the top, looking a little bit worrying. That's it for today. Watch for those US markets opening. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.